Happy holidays, Stillman Company, 102.5, 106.3, The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios. It is a Fireball Hot Take Friday. It is a special Black Friday edition leading into the Predators pregame. And by the way, how about the Predators and all the butt kicking that they've been doing ever since I told everybody, I guess that we should embrace going to the bottom of the league. Embrace the tank. We wanted it. We wanted a new coach. We wanted a new general manager. So let's just embrace it. And now the Predators can't lose ever since we said that. So 3 in a row for the Predators. They go on the road. Big one today at St. Louis at 2 o'clock. Pregame's at 1 o'clock. We're taking you up to that. David is in for Ian today. David, happy holidays. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic, and happy holidays to you as well, Jared.
So David's working today. Nick Frazier's working today. I'm working today. Joe's not working today. Robbie's not working today. Caroline's not working today. Derek's not working today. Willie is working today. He'll be on the TV broadcast for the Predators. Chase ain't working today. Big Joe ain't working today. I'm just saying. Did I leave anybody out, David? Ian's not working today.
Connor Newt, shout out Connor Newt. He'll be working today.
Connor Newt will be working today, which we're happy about.
Exactly.
So I want to start with this. I don't know how many of you woke up this morning yesterday morning on Thanksgiving. You're probably at your great Aunt Lily's house, and you woke up, you got on your phone, and even if you don't subscribe to The Athletic, you probably saw that Diana Russini is reporting that Mike Vrabel's not going anywhere. Diana writes in The Athletic, quote, "Frustrated Patriot fans can stop hoping that owner Robert Kraft will trade with Tennessee and replace head coach Bill Belichick with his former player, Mike Vrabel. It's not happening," Diana writes. "Angry Tennessee Titan fans, which I would count as one of, can stop hoping owner Amy Adams Strunk fires Vrabel. It's not happening," Diana says. Based on multiple conversations with high-ranking Titans officials, the franchise strongly and collectively believes it has the right coach for long-term success. Is the Titans leadership thrilled with losing right now, Diana writes? No. Who is? But they are fully aware of the foundation and identity of this team is reflective of their head coach. He does it his way and gets players to believe that is the way. Boy, I tell you, I don't know what gets me believing like that Jacksonville performance on Sunday, but I guess that's just me. Diana writes at The Athletic, recently, the 2021 AP Coach of the Year. I love how she loves to put that in there. Recently, the Coach of the Year from a couple of years ago. Don't you guys forget, Diana writes. The 2021 AP Coach of the Year answered questions about his job status from local reporters and was adamant that he's more concerned with getting this team to play better. "I don't try to concern myself with that," he said. "I really am focused on these players. I hurt for them. I played 14 years, won some games, won some championships. I'm frustrated for these players." First of all, I think that line is total bullcrap, which maybe we'll get into in a second. He said it on Sunday after they lost to Jacksonville about his job status. It was basically like, "I don't worry about that. I hurt for the players." Bullcrap. But that's a different discussion. We'll probably get into that at some point. While the Titans are still trying to figure out if rookie quarterback Will Levis is their quarterback of the future, the clearest vision for the team is who will be their leader for years to come. Ready, steady, Vrabel. Diana writes. So Diana Russini is telling us that Mike Vrabel's not getting fired. Diana Russini is telling us that according to the high-level sources that she has talked to with the Titans, Mike Vrabel's not getting traded. Now, Joe went out of his way, and I think some of this is, team backing. Diana and Joe are teammates at The Athletic. And Joe got up there yesterday on Twitter, Joe Rex Road, and he was talking about how, "I promise you this story didn't come from Vrabel," and I'll back this. There's no way that story can come from Vrabel. The New York Times would not allow, who owns The Athletic and pays Diana, the New York Times would not allow Diana to publish a piece in which the main source was Mike Vrabel. The high-level sources I've talked to say they're not firing Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel can't be the source for that. Because Mike Vrabel doesn't know if they're going to fire Mike Vrabel or not. He doesn't have the authority to fire Mike Vrabel. So Diana talked to ownership. That's what this is. The way she makes it sound is it wasn't just Amy she talked to, but she probably talked to Amy and Kenneth and Barkley. There's only one other person that could be in the mix that could qualify as a high-ranking source, and that would be Burke Nihill, the team president. And considering that Diana didn't write about the new stadium, my guess is she didn't talk to him. Without knowing it for sure, it sounds like Diana talked to Amy, and Amy said they're not moving off of Vrabel, which means that there are two conclusions that can be made here. Number one, Titans ownership really believes in Mike Vrabel a lot more than I believe in Mike Vrabel, and a lot more than I sense most of you believe in Mike Vrabel. I think Vrabel is a good motivator. I don't think he's a good strategist. I don't think he's a good talent evaluator. And I think he has completely bungled the coaching staff. Those are all pretty important jobs for somebody who is in Vrabel's position, which is not just, hey, you buy the groceries, I cook the dinner, but that I'm in the process of putting the Instacart order together. I mean, so that's that's pretty bad, right? Like, hey, I can motivate them, but I can't pick them. I can't manage the guys who do manage them. And I can't outthink the other coach on any given Sunday. So the first possibility here is that Titans ownership really is blind to Vrabel's bullcrap, and he will be back next season after they win 5 games this year. They'll be back next season. They'll spend $100 million of her money out in the free agent market. They will deal draft picks. They will use draft picks. They will return the same terrible coaching staff. And as we learned last year when they fired the bad offensive line coach, if they fire a bad coach, they'll just promote an even worse or more inexperienced coach to take over and screw that up. But, I mean, we are fully embracing Fisher ball, in which, and you guys think Fisher ball is playing for field goals and playing defense. That's not Fisher ball. Fisher ball is CYA, perpetually coaching yourself on and off the hot seat. Whenever there are positive expectations, you fail to meet them. Whenever the jury is convening to go ahead and put you away, you find a way out. That's Fisher ball. That happened after 2005 when they went and got Vince Young. And in the middle of that 2006 season, Vince Young turned everything around, won the Rookie of the Year. Fisher coached off the hot seat. Then they made the playoffs in 07. They made the playoffs in 08. They started terribly in 09 with Kerry Collins at quarterback, and they made the move to Vince Young, and Vince Young came back in there, and Vince Young won just enough games down the stretch to keep Jeff Fisher off the hot seat. Then in 2010, it all blew up, and the fact that Fisher couldn't draft, and the fact that Fisher couldn't put a team together, and the fact that Fisher kept hiring bozos like Norm Chow and Chuck Cecil, and it finally all came to a head when Vince Young threw his pads into the stands after the Washington game, and Vince was done, and Jeff was done, and finally, mercifully, it was over. But right now, we're kind of at the beginning stages of that. That was 2010. We're at 2005. I mean, we still got a long way to go. That's the first possibility. That unlike me, unlike a lot of you, unlike my dad, who is the opposite of me in terms of emotion and knee-jerk reactions and everything else, my dad is a benefit of the doubt guy. He's managed people for 40 years, and he is ready to move on from Vrabel. So unlike him, unlike you, unlike me, Titans ownership is blind to Vrabel's championships won as the Patriots coach, and they just think, oh, he can do no wrong. Or it is the dreaded vote of confidence. The athletic director supports the coach. The owner supports the general manager. The dreaded vote of confidence in sports. And with this ownership group, I don't think there is any way to know what they actually think. Because the last time Titans ownership backed a coach publicly, it was after the Titans had beaten the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs, and they put out a statement emailed to everybody from their PR staff attributed to the owner. And the statement was, Mike Mularkey is our head coach, and Mike Mularkey will be our head coach moving forward. Regardless of what happened with that Patriots game or the press conference the next day or Robisky or Schmagegi, it doesn't matter. When the owner comes out and says he's the coach, that's the end of the story. And in 2018, Titans ownership lied. Okay? They were going to fire Mularkey after the Jacksonville game that ended the season, except the Titans won. They were going to fire Mularkey after the Kansas City game, which is why Mularkey got up there at the press conference and said he was upset about it because he didn't know. Nobody was talking to him. He felt like he was left on an island. Mike Mularkey publicly aired his grievances because he knew if they didn't win that game at Kansas City, he was going to be fired. They were embarrassed because what they did was horrendously embarrassing. And John Robinson has to wear some of that because he was the chief of that. But then they came out the next day and said Mularkey's going to be the head coach. Then a week later, they fired him. They lied. Now, a lot of you guys are an ends justify the means kind of people. I'm a process person. I believe that if you have a good process and you repetitively practice that good process, whatever it may be, whether it's talent evaluation, whether it's people management, whether it's coaching, whatever it might be, if you've got a good process for how you operate, the results will come out positive more often than they are negative. A lot of you just believe, well, I didn't like Mularkey anyway, so good riddance to bad rubbish, which I don't believe in. But again, that takes us to our current situation right now. Either Titans ownership is blind of Vrabel's bullcrap, or they're lying again. And I don't know how there is any way for you to know what the truth is. But regardless of what the truth is, the one thing that I do know is that Titans ownership wants everybody to think they are behind Mike Vrabel. As again, we learned with Mike Mularkey, it doesn't mean that they are behind Mike Vrabel. It means that they want everybody to think they are behind Mike Vrabel. So that's all we know right now. But I was a little surprised to see that. 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025. Again, the big report. Diana Rossini says Vrabel's not going anywhere. Trade, not happening. Firing, not happening. Vrabel's your coach. Vrabel will be your coach. But again, 5 years ago, we were in the same spot. And they told us Mike Mularkey was going to be the coach. And then Mike wasn't. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025. And coming up next, what I believe the Diana story. Again, it's one of two things. One thing is for sure. They want you to think that they're behind Vrabel. Either they're behind Vrabel or they're lying. What I think it is, we'll get to that next. 615-737-1025 on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. It's Stillman Company on a special Black Fireball Hot Take Friday edition. 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
I'm excited for Rand and his staff to work closely with Coach Vrabel and the coaches to align on a vision for the team and to build a roster of players who best fit that vision. Together, they will identify talented players and ultimately the right players to build a championship roster. Despite how last season ended, I still have high expectations for our team. We have some big questions to answer off-season, but I'm excited for what the future brings.
The Titans, in spite of taking $1.2 billion of your money, she got up there and she said, I still have high expectations for this coming season. Rand and Mike together, they will find the right players for this team. Like Andre Dillard and Arden Key and a running back in the third round and not so fast. So at least when Amy got hired, she told you she had or when Rand got hired and they put, what I call the commission, and they put the commission together, the owner told you right then and there, we have high expectations for this coming season. Well, I don't know what meets high expectations. Again, Mike Mularkey won a playoff game. Apparently that wasn't good enough for him. But I think we can all agree at 3-7, hosting the 1-9 Panthers, that these are not high expectations being met. So either she was lying then, because a lot of you guys say, well, what was Vrabel supposed to do? The boohoo Vrabel crew. They say this roster, which, by the way, he had a hand in building. He didn't have the authority in building it until this past year. But he did have a hand in building it with John Robinson. And then he did have authority with Rand Carthon to build this roster this year. But this roster's so bad, what's he going to do about it? Well, that's not what the owner was saying when they hired the GM. The owner was saying, hey, these guys, they're going to put this together. We're going to have a good team this year. So either she was lying to you then, and they had told her, like, Amy, we're going to try, but there's a really, really, really good chance this team's going to suck. Or, what is probably more likely, she actually meant that then, and they've disappointed her. So by telling Diana Rossini, which I believe comes straight from the owner, that Vrabel is not in danger of losing his job, it means one of two things. It either means that they are committed to him, or it's the dreaded vote of confidence, and they're doing this because they want the Patriots to pay up if they're going to try to hire their coach, or whatever it may be. I believe that Titans ownership is committed to what I call the commission, Vrabel and Rand Carthon. And if that is the case, I find that to be incredibly disheartening because the last 10 months have been a train wreck. I'm not going to say ever since they added Rand Carthon because things were already bad before that. They lose 7 games in a row. They end the season. They hire Rand Carthon. He talks a big game when he gets hired. But outside of that, these 10 months have been an unmitigated disaster. A lot of times when people say, I say, the best you could have done is Andre Dillard. And the boohoo Vrabel crew will argue, well, tell me somebody better. If you think that's so bad, you tell me somebody better. And I did this on Wednesday when I brought up the fact that Donovan Smith is the starting left tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs, who they signed for 1 year and $3 million. You gave Andre Dillard $10 million. They gave their guy who had started in Tampa Bay and won a Super Bowl $3 million. Now, is Donovan Smith, Mike Munchak, or Brad Hopkins, or Michael Roos? No, not at this point in his career. But he's definitely better than Andre Dillard and Jalen Duncan and Nicholas Petit-Ferrer and the crap bums you've got. And Andre Dillard is just the epitome of what was a horrendous free agency process for the Titans. Then there was draft night. Now, again, Diana was the one who was reporting live from your facility that you were going to move up to the third pick to take a quarterback, only to have Houston completely sniff it out. And maybe, because clearly Diana's sourcing on this has to be ownership, maybe Diana's sourcing on the C.J. Stroud thing was ownership, which is why Floyd used to always tell me, hey, when it comes to draft time, you really try to not tell the owner anything. Like, you really try to go out of your way to avoid telling your owner anything. Because the owner is the one person, you're not going to have somebody who works for you that says, Mr. GM, who are you going to draft? Because you're not going to tell them. Nobody like me or anybody else in the media, Mr. GM, who are you going to draft? They're not going to say. The owner says, GM, who are you going to draft? You kind of have to tell them the truth. So he always said you try to avoid the owner as much as possible for this. So maybe it was ownership that told Diana that they were going to do whatever it took to get C.J. Stroud. I don't know. That opens a whole nother box of discussion. But draft night was a horrendous embarrassment. Vrabel's coaching staff and his coaching staff changes have been a disaster. I mean, Vrabel gets up there when they hire Rand Carthon and has this impassioned plea about how Craig Aukerman is a good special teams coach, and it's not his fault that they can't find a punt returner, and he begs Rand to go get some returners, and guess what? They still can't return punts. It's amazing. So it's been a nightmarish 10 months. You got your quarterback hurt. Outside of signing DeAndre Hopkins, which, again, is because you Price is righted it, you were the last person to bid on whatever it was that they were putting up there on Price is Right. You looked at what the Patriots had offered, and you said $1,201, and you got DeAndre. If anybody else had offered $1,202, you would have lost it. But outside of that, it's been a nightmarish 10 months. And yet I still think that either Vrabel has a spell on ownership, or they're into the macho bull crap, or they don't watch the games, or I couldn't tell you what it is. But if you were to ask me, and I have not talked to them about this, and I am not claiming to have talked to them about this, but if you had to ask me, do you think that Diana's story is, and Ben Volen of the Boston Globe, who reported the story that Kraft's dream would be for Mike Vrabel to be the head coach of the Patriots, which is what kickstarted a lot of this. But he tweeted out yesterday and said, quote, Patriots, if you want Vrabel, you got to pay up, which is what this means. And again, I keep referencing it because I think it is incredibly valid. They lied to everybody about Mike Mularkey. There's no way around that. They lied. Regardless of, well, they said it was going forward. They didn't say it was going forward for next season. Or they said it was going forward and he wouldn't fire Rabisky. So that's, no. They lied. Like there's no, again, you can say it however you want. Nobody else is going to say the owner lied in town because nobody wants to piss anybody off. But I'll just tell you straight up, they lied. But I don't think they're doing that here. I think they like Vrabel. I think they blame John Robinson for everything. They blame Vrabel for nothing. They think if we still had A.J. Brown, we'd still be good. They think that Andre Dillard was because, well, that's the best we could do, not that there were other tackles that they could go get. I mean, you got practice squad guys that are better than Andre Dillard. They gave him $10 million. They don't look at the fact that David Long Jr., who you will see tonight in the Black Friday game for the Dolphins against the Jets, happens to miraculously be healthy now that he's away from your training staff that Vrabel will never, ever, ever criticize. They don't seem to look at your offensive line. You watch everybody else's offensive line around the NFL. Everybody else has an offensive line that at least can semi-protect. Every game you play, quarterback says hike and he's in the ground. Vrabel hired an assistant coach with no relative NFL experience, and this is what you get. But we're not allowed to blame that because apparently they think that Vrabel's poop doesn't stink. And I'm incredibly disheartened by it. I mean, I'm really disheartened by everything this ownership has done over the last year. I have no faith in them. At this point, if the stadium debate were still up there, I think that they'd be fighting a much tougher battle because the lack of public trust in ownership is so high right now. And it should be high right now in terms of the lack of trust. But if you're asking me, like, are the Titans owners playing chess or checkers, and you're saying, are they playing chess here, putting it out there around Black Friday with the dreaded vote of confidence that Mike's our coach and we are not trading him as a means to get Robert Kraft to knock your socks off, I don't think they're doing that. I think they know the heat. I think they hear the heat. They went to a team-friendly reporter, which Diana is. Diana has always played ball with the Titans, specifically with Vrabel, when she has just crapped on John Robinson in the past. And I think that they let it be known on the holidays where there's only one show in town, this one, that is working at all, that they just let it be known that, yeah, Mike's going to be the coach. So we might lose to the Panthers on Sunday, but everybody out there is just going to have to suck it up. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. We'll get to your phones on this at 615-737-1025. Plus, as Caroline Fenton reported on Wednesday night, David, did you see this?
I did.
The local gentlemen's club is not going to be very happy about Diana Rossini's report. We'll touch on that and get to your phone. Stillman and Company, 615-737-1025 on a Fireball Hot Take Friday, 102.5, 106 the game.
Do you think your job security is an issue, Mike, or going to be?
Oh, Paul, I don't try to concern myself with that. I really am focused on these players. I hurt for them. I played 14 years, won some games, won some championships. I am frustrated for the players. I'm disappointed for the players. I want them to have success. I know how hard they work and that they put into it. So that's what my focus is. My focus is on coaching this team, of trying to get these guys to understand that there's a fine line in this league of winning and losing, and finding a way to get a win. That's what I'm focused on. I'll let you guys, fire me each week or not fire me. I apologize. I appreciate your question. I do. I will always understand that. We have to improve and we have to win. Those are things that we have to do. I'm going to come to work. I'm going to get up. I'm going to sleep 5 hours like I do, and I'm going to come with a resolve, and I'm going to be thankful this week with Thanksgiving. I'm going to be thankful for this opportunity that I have to coach. I'm going to be thankful for my family. I'm thankful for this team, and I'm going to coach the hell out of them like I do every week. And I'm not, I love Romeo Cornell. Not only was my position coach, I got to coach with him, and he always used to say, it's a great life. You don't let it beat you down. And, we're not going to let it beat it down, but we're going to get back to work. And you can still be frustrated and upset and disappointed, but, I'm also going to be thankful and hopeful, for the opportunity that I get to coach this football team.
There you go, Vrabel. I'm not worried about getting fired. I hurt for the players. Sure. Meanwhile, Kevin Byard's up in Philadelphia celebrating Thanksgiving by himself because you're so worried about how the players feel. Now, this happened on Wednesday night. I was unaware of the fact that the Predators are playing at 8 o'clock on Wednesday. I thought it was a normal 7 o'clock start until I was doing the show from the arena, and I was like, where is Max? And they're like, it's a 7 o'clock pregame. I'm like, oh, no. And so I'm sitting there, and I get a text message from Caroline, who's coming to the game with her sister and everything else. And she's got a picture of the well-known Nashville staple gentleman's club Deja Vu. The one that has 99 good-looking women and 3 ugly ones? And Deja Vu has a giant sign out front that says, Fire Coach Vrabel. It also says free couch dances with every Titans touchdown with a crying emoji, and not the laughing crying emoji, but the crying emoji. That the strip club is sad that you suck. And I can't tell you why Caroline was at the strip club or driving by the strip club, or I can't tell you any of that. You got to talk to her about that. I have no idea. But when I saw that Mike Vrabel had lost the local strip club, I thought to myself, man, I don't ever remember Deja Vu coming after Jeff Fisher or Mike Munchak or Mike Malarkey or even Ken Wisenhunt. Now, I can't keep up with the Deja Vu stance on everything, but I don't ever remember that. And there is one serious point that I do want to make off of this, which is, again, a recurring trend. And that is that I believe that Titans ownership listens to the fans. I don't think that that's always the smart thing to do. If I owned the football team, I would listen to the fans, but I probably wouldn't make decisions based upon anything that the fans do or don't want or whatever it may be. I remember when I first came back here on the radio and Ken Wisenhunt started the season in disastrous fashion. They were like 1-8 or something like that. And it was embarrassing how bad they were. I mean, there was no end in sight in the horrendousness of that football team. And yet every media person in town was shouting down the idea of firing Wisenhunt in the middle of the year. I remember it like it was yesterday, the late Mark Howard. And I have a ton of respect for Mark Howard. You guys know that. We were lucky enough to do a season with Mark on the pregame show. But I remember Mark Howard saying this organization signed him to a 5-year contract. They're in the middle of year 2. They are not going to pay Ken Wisenhunt to not work for 3 years. And then they fired him. The fans wanted Wisenhunt fired, and they fired him. Then when it was time for Malarkey, the fans hated Malarkey. I liked Malarkey. I didn't want to fire Malarkey because from where I sat, 2 years prior, you were the worst team in the NFL. You hadn't been to the playoffs in almost a decade. You hadn't won a playoff game in almost 15 years. And here you are, the divisional round of the playoffs, playing Tom Brady and the Patriots. I don't want to go back to some jabroni as coach. I know Malarkey's a good coach. Did I like Trubisky? No. But I know that group of old pawpaws with Malarkey and LeBeau and Russ Grimm and Trubisky, and I knew that those guys knew what they were doing to a certain extent. But the fans wanted Malarkey out of here. And the fans got their wish. I mean, there's more. I mean, again, you don't have the local strip joint going after Malarkey, but I think that there's probably more fan defense of Mike Vrabel than there was of Mike Malarkey. AFC Championship game. That's it. That's the only thing. But Mike Malarkey didn't lose the way Mike Vrabel's losing, and I don't think Mike Malarkey would ever lose the way that Mike Vrabel's losing. And then when it came to John Robinson, I think most of us in the media thought that, look, I mean, Robinson has really screwed some things up, but probably is safe. He just signed a contract extension. They were just the number ones, and bam, he's gone. And so maybe they'll listen to the fans on this, and that the Diana thing is all just posturing, but where I said, I think they probably believe in Vrabel. 615-737-1025. Our phone lines on this Fireball Hot Take Friday are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. One texter says, how come you guys can't talk to Titans executives like Diana Rossini and learn things you've been wondering about? If I were a local sports media person, I'd be offended that Diana Rossini gets scoops from my beat. Well, that's a discussion you need to take up with the beat writers. So I implore you to send that question to @Paul Kaharski NFL on Twitter. I'm not a beat writer. I don't try to be a beat writer. And here's the thing about insiders. See, this is where the game's changed as all these sports have become national. The insider game is a very dirty game, right? Like, the only reason that someone's going to give you information is if it A, benefits them, or B, if they like you. That's it. Well, I come on the air every day, and if I think Vrabel does a good job, I say I think he did a good job. If I think Vrabel did a bad job, I'll say I think Vrabel's doing a bad job. But if I was building my business off of having the scoops, then I'd have to kiss ass all the time. And quite frankly, I don't think that's what people want to hear. I don't think people want to hear the go team go talk. Besides, there's plenty of that in town, just not on our station. But I don't think people want to hear that. So if I wanted to be an insider, I'd have to change everything I do. And it's not worth it. And again, Diana might be getting lied to. Just like they lied to everybody when they said Mike Malarkey is our coach going forward. And I'm not upset. I don't think that it is wrong at all in this instance to constantly bring that up. Because when you lie about something that is so important and the fate of your head coach is important, when you lie about that and you run into a similar situation down the road, we have to remind everybody that they can't be trusted because they've already lied about it. And if I wanted scoops from them, the last thing I do is come on the air and tell you that they've lied to us in the past. And remind you that, hey, not everything that they always say is usually right there in the truth. This one texter says, when did fans want Malarkey fired? That surprise run to the division round was one of the best in 10 years. No one was calling for his head. Dude, I did this show every day. You guys hated Mike Malarkey. I liked Mike Malarkey. I still like Mike Malarkey. I think Mike Malarkey was a good football coach. I think Mike Malarkey is the example of why you have to be very careful in taking jobs in the NFL. He took the Jacksonville job. And while he took that job, they sold the team. And a new owner came in and a new general manager came in. And after 1 year with a quarterback he didn't draft, he got fired. That's not very fair. But that's why you have to, again, know what you're getting yourself into. But you guys, the fans, yeah, you guys certainly, you guys hated Mike Mularkey. 615-737-1025. More of your phones on this. Again, the story of the day, Diana Rossini says Vrabel is going nowhere. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. We roll along 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
I don't think that making changes to a coaching staff at this point in time is warranted. I believe in our staff. I believe in our players. And we're going to find ways to improve. We're going to find ways to, win after we find ways to improve.
I promise we will find ways to win, says Mike Vrabel. Fireball Hot Take Friday. Let's get to some phones, which are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Skylar texts in and says, as a Titans fan, it is disheartening to hear the news about the Titans not moving off of Vrabel. Can you imagine what other NFL organizations think when they see the Titans make these dumb decisions? Dillard for $10 million a year, a 270-pound center, 2 backup backers starting on defense, special teams being terrible 3 years in a row. I don't see this going well unless some luck falls into the Titans' hands. I believe that the rest of the league looks at the Titans like a dumb team. I think that they look at the Titans just kind of like the way the Raiders used to draft. When the Raiders would do it, and we'd be like, oh, God, what a stupid thing for the Raiders to do. Like when the Giants gave Kenny Galladay a humongous contract, and everybody else in the league was like, ha, 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 ha. That's how I think the rest of the league looks at you. And I think it started with the A.J. Brown trade. But even then, I think the rest of the league kind of understood that. Like they looked at it like, okay, they traded A.J. Brown for a younger version of A.J. Brown, knowing the risks that come with what happens when you do something like that. But I do think like the firing Robinson in the middle of the year, they're like, wait a minute, they did what? Starting a 270-pound center, they're like, wait, why would you do that? But I also think other teams around the league look at it and they're just like, well, that's their problem, not ours. And they're right. It is our problem, and it is incredibly obnoxious. One texter into the text line says Mularkey's blind loyalty to Robisky is what got him fired. Now, I don't think that that's really true. I think it is the narrative that came out after the fact, because if you were to say, okay, why did Mike Mularkey get fired? If that's the question, Corey Curtis will be on next hour, and I do want to talk to him about this because I do think that now that we're, in this state where ownership is sitting there and they're telling everybody, oh, no, trust us. Vrabel, he's a great coach, and it's like, well, you fired Mularkey after you won a playoff game, and you lied about that. So, but this is what I believe. The narrative is that Mularkey got fired because of Robisky. My belief is Mularkey got fired because Robinson didn't want him. That's what I believe. And that they put out the statement that Mularkey was going to be the coach after they won the playoff game because they knew they couldn't fire him after that, and they still decided to fire him anyways. I don't think it had to do with the loyalty to Terry Robisky. I think that's just what people believe. I don't think that that's actually true. Texture says, Jared, do you think Vrabel can build this team from the ground up? I've heard some fans say that he is a good pilot of a team with good players and coaches, but when they aren't good, Vrabel will have to build it up. My answer to you is no. I do not think, first of all, I think Mike Vrabel should be the coach. That's it. No personnel responsibilities, coaching. That should be Mike Vrabel's job. I think Mike Vrabel needs adult supervision. And when Mike Vrabel doesn't have adult supervision, that's how you end up with this terrible offensive line coach coaching these terrible offensive linemen. Because Vrabel looks at a guy like Andre Dillard, who's got talent, but is a total softy, and thinks, I can do it, I can coach him. Looks at Aaron Brewer, who plays hard, and says, that's my kind of guy. But doesn't actually factor in the personnel aspects that are important in order to be successful in the NFL because he's never done that. And then when it comes to the coaching staff, I think he needs to have some accountability there. And clearly, as has been well documented this week, there is no accountability there. One texter says, Vrabel was a bad defensive coordinator and had a Cinderella playoff run that ended up in losing and has only had success in the regular season. He's an average at best coach. Hard to disagree. 615-737-1025. There was another little nugget in the Diana Rossini report that I'm actually kind of shocked about. Like, I I shouldn't say I'm shocked about it, but I'm shocked at the tight. I am shocked about it. I'm shocked about it. We'll get to that coming up next here on the program. Again, it was in the Diana report, the one that says that basically Vrabel has got a clean slate, has a license to be as terrible as he wants, and he'll keep his job no matter what. Stillman and Company on a Fireball Hot Take Friday, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. Live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios on a Fireball Hot Take Friday, a Black Friday special edition. Preds pregame at 1, Preds at 2 o'clock. We also have the Black Friday football game tonight at 2 o'clock, where the Jets will be taking on the Dolphins, which was supposed to be a good game, and then Aaron Rodgers got hurt. And as is the case with most of these Jets games that are supposed to be on prime time, they're not as sexy as they were at the beginning of the season. So Diana Rossini had the report in The Athletic yesterday that the Titans are not moving on from Mike Vrabel. No way, no how, no trade, no firing, no nothing. You just have to suck it up and respect 3-14 and understand that Mike Vrabel is the best coach, and you know how this goes. It's ridiculous. And I don't know what to believe. And Titans ownership has proven to us in the past that they are not to be trusted. So, I don't know. But there was a little nugget in the end of the Diana article. And I do not think that Diana is making this up. And I do not think that Diana is getting this stuff from Mike Vrabel, because I don't think she could run with this if Mike Vrabel was her source. Just knowing what I know of The Athletic. Like, I think she's getting this from ownership. So this little nugget was at the very bottom of her Titans piece. Quote, while the Titans are still trying to figure out if rookie quarterback Will Levis is their quarterback of the future, the clearest vision this team has is who will be their leader for years to come, in reference to Vrabel. That tiny little nugget set off massive alarm bells in my head. I heard that and I was like, wait a minute, what? So this organization that is trying to tell you we had no choice but to trade Kevin Byard for nothing because we don't have any draft picks, this organization is not sold on Will Levis as the quarterback of the future, but they used a second and third round pick on him. Oh my God. I don't understand this organization anymore. But let's put aside the incompetence of drafting a guy in the second round and using a third round pick. I mean, I said when they took him, I'm like, he's the future now. Like, he is the franchise quarterback. And if he's not, you're all fired. Like, that's how this league works. You draft a quarterback that high. If he doesn't work out, you draft a tackle in the second round and it doesn't work out, you know what? Try the guy out at guard, and if he can't play, it's a bust. It's okay. If you hit on some of your other picks, you'll be okay. You miss on a quarterback? Because the quarterback has to play, and the only way for you to know that the quarterback's not good is for the quarterback to play, you miss on a quarterback? Unless you luck into another quarterback like San Francisco did with Brock Purdy, you're fired. Like that, there's no way around this. You are fired if you're a coach or a GM and you invest what they invest in Will Levis on a quarterback. And again, I think Diana's sourcing is ownership. So when she says they're still trying to figure out if rookie Will Levis is their quarterback of the future, I'm like, they're not committed to that kid. Which means Sunday's game is a very, very big game for Will Levis. You know, I always joke about how being a Titan fan, when I walk around the locker room sometimes, you know, training camp or whatever, like as a fan, it's hard for me not to go up to these dudes like in the locker room and say, hey man, my dad's counting on you this year. You need to step it up. But if I was in the locker room this week, it'd be really hard for me not to go over to Will Levis's locker and to say, dude, I'm sure you got a million things to worry about. I'm sure you got 1 trillion people giving you advice. I'm sure you've got a bunch of people that are kissing your ass. And because you're Will Levis, I know there are a lot of people out there that have hated on you and will continue to hate on you for whatever reason it may be, that they don't like you. And that will be very vocal on TV, radio, social media, everywhere. But let me make one thing very clear to you. You better win this game. I know your line sucks. I know your receivers outside of DeAndre aren't very good. I know your pass catchers don't catch the ball. I know everybody thinks Tajay Spears is way better than he actually is. I know your defense does not put you in advantageous situations, and your special teams does nothing to help you out. I know. But you better win this game. I know Carolina's got the 6th best defense in the NFL, which is incredible given how terrible they are. But you better not lose this game. Because if you lose this game, there's a pretty good chance the Titans are going to be in position to take one of the quarterbacks this year. And I don't know if you read Diana's article, but they're not committed to you. They don't believe in you. They are cautiously optimistic that you might be a franchise quarterback, but they're not willing to put a ring on it. In fact, not only are they not willing to put a ring on it, they're telling people they're not willing to put a ring on it. Go ask the Texans if they're committed to C.J. Stroud. Go across the field to Bryce Young, where Bryce Young's been getting his ass put in the ground every game. They traded away his only receiver in order to get him. They've got nothing around him, and they've got terrible coaching. And ask him if he thinks his organization is committed to him. The answer is yes. But not this one. Not this organization. This coach and GM clearly didn't want to draft you, or else they would have, over a guard in the first round, who, by the way, is not even that good right now. I don't know if you guys actually watch tape, but Skoronski has issues. But they're not committed to you. And then they drafted you in a position of which they should be committed to you. Then they make you the starting quarterback, and now they're telling people, yeah, we don't know if he's our quarterback of the future or not. Oh, man. Like, that's not how this league works. So, again, for your sake, don't lose this week to the Panthers. Like, there's going to be some lean Sundays, and I'm worried about you physically. I'm worried about your body behind this terrible offensive line and this horrible offensive line coaching. I am worried about all of it. And I don't blame you for any of it. But don't lose this week, or else bad things will happen to you. And again, it's not fair, but the NFL is not fair. Your phones are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. I was fascinated that Diana included that nugget in there. Buffalo has been waiting patiently and is up next here on the program. Thank you for calling. What's up, Buffalo?
I don't know. I'm on the other side of that whole argument. I just get miffed when people call for the coach's head job when their roster is just full of garbage, and
even though the coach was a part of acquiring the garbage that's on this roster.
I kind of give him a slide because of the general manager before. But if you look at what Green Bay has done, 17 people on the injured reserve, and they come back and beat the Lions. Not 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, everybody was calling for Matt LaFleur's job. Get rid of that joker. He was only good because Aaron Rodgers was his quarterback. I am so sick of hearing all that crap. Let's just watch what the season does. Get a big picture view. 10,000 feet up and look at the whole thing. Yeah, the Titans.
So at the end of the year, let's say, Buffalo, let's say at the end of the year, let's say things continue the way they're going and the Titans finish 5-12, and we're looking 10,000 feet.
Yeah.
Then can we blame Vrabel?
I say give him one more year and boot him out. If it's crap next year, he's gone. But I say give him another year.
Why am I giving him another year when in the last calendar year of football he's been 3-14, correct? And that record gets almost any coach fired, right?
Yeah. It gets most of them fired.
So, all right. So we're going to give it a whole rest of the half year. It still continues to be bad. And we're still going to give him another year, and we're going to let him spend $100 million and use your 4th overall draft choice in this year's draft.
I just know that they have a whole bunch of money going to come available, and I feel like next year will be a completely different team. And halfway through next year.
So you're going to let the same artists, artists that brought us the smashing hits in free agency, Aaron Brewer, Azeez Al-Shaair, Andre Dillard, you will let them spend, $30-40 million this year. You're going to let them spend $100 million next year.
What was that player that went to Arizona? He was real crappy. He got another job. I feel you. I understand.
What player from Arizona are you talking about?
Didn't one of their crappy players get fired and Arizona picked them up for $2 million or something like that?
I have no idea what you're talking about. Now you're just making things up. Thank you for your call. Have a great holiday. I don't know what you're talking about here with Arizona. David, do you have any idea what he's talking about?
I think he's talking about Josh Dobbs.
Oh, yeah, that's different. Josh Dobbs is a backup quarterback, okay? Like, losing Josh Dobbs doesn't matter. Would I have brought him back? Yeah, I would have. But that doesn't, like, that is the least of my concerns. Dobbs is a backup's backup, and he is, again, a backup quarterback. I'm not worried about that. What I am worried about is that the guys that brought us Aaron Brewer for $4.3 million, Andre Dillard for $10 million, that these guys are going to be empowered to go spend more money and bring you back. What they're going to do is they're going to bring you the Andre Dillards just for more money. That's what I'm worried about. So this idea of, I don't think we should blame the coach. I'm like, well, you don't think we should blame the coach? Who should we blame? Blame the last general manager? I mean, again, Howie Roseman of the Eagles, in 2019, Howie Roseman of the Eagles drafted Andre Dillard in the first round. In 2020, he drafted Jalen Reagor. In between, he gave Carson Wentz the richest contract extension in the history of the NFL. All three failed miserably. But the Eagles didn't give up. The Eagles didn't just, can't blame anybody for anything. It's not Doug Peterson's fault. It's not this guy's fault. It's not. No. The Eagles said, this guy's not as good of a coach for us anymore. See ya. This guy's a better quarterback than they let's see ya. This guy don't want to be here. See ya. And they went and made trades and made moves. But everybody just wants to say, well, Robinson missed on Isaiah Wilson and Caleb Farley and Dylan Radens. So none of this is Vrabel's fault. And I don't operate like that. Did Robinson screw up? Yeah, he did. But none of it's his fault? When it comes to Vrabel? Ridiculous. 615-737-1025. More your phones. 615-737-1025 here on Stillman and Company. If you want to weigh in here on the program, we'll get to your phones. 1025-1063 The Game. Flag there, Trevor? Flag there, Trevor?
I don't think so. I don't think the tears is a big deal just because there's so much pressure built up and he's carrying that team. And when they lost that game and he was seen crying in the stands and when the dam bursts and you don't have to hold it together anymore, sometimes it really bursts heavily. And it did in that moment. And that's just what happens when you're under that kind of pressure. And he's played well under pressure. I don't mind that. I would worry a little bit about the dad. Because if I'm an NFL team, I'm thinking, hey, we're drafting you, not you plus your dad. Mm-hmm. So is he going to be influencing you over what's going to happen and what your career is going to be like and how you're going to practice and all the rest of it? Or is this going to be you? And they do need to ask him that. And they'll have visits and they'll see him at the combine and things like that. But I would worry about that a little bit because the last thing you need is a repeat of certain highly drafted quarterbacks who have come in and demanded special consideration for their families. And they've come in and branded their training camps with sponsors, and they've gotten hurt and then dictated to the offensive coordinator how they would be used going forward because that's what their agent tells them to do. These are things that the father situation could be a red flag, but the teams need to figure that out before they draft him.
Trevor talking about Caleb Williams. And I'll say this, if you lose to the Panthers, and again, people on Twitter are like, I didn't see Diana's report saying the Titans aren't committed to Will Levis. I'm like, when she says the Titans are still trying to figure out if rookie quarterback Will Levis is their quarterback of the future, that means that they're not committed to Will Levis as the quarterback of the future. Are you committed to marrying her? Well, still trying to figure that out. There is a difference between that and, yeah, I'm looking at rings right now. People are mad about that. But if you lose on Sunday to Carolina, we might be talking about position to draft a young quarterback. I mean, we might be talking about it. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Titans in Truth, Chris, is up next. Chris, I hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Thank you for waiting. Go ahead.
Yeah, I hope you had a great Thanksgiving too, Jared. I appreciate you as always. I'm so glad you're doing the show today and everybody else is not because you bring facts. And I, like you, when I saw that report, it just sickened me to the core because that just tells me, well, they're fine with mediocrity. They're fine with it. They don't want to win. And to all the Vrabel apologists out there, they're like, he's such a great coach. You can't get no better. Congratulations. You're going to enjoy more 5-12, 6-11 seasons, maybe an occasional 9-8 squeak in, but Will Levis will be ruined thanks to this staff, and we will get no better. And here's a hot take for you, Jared. This may not be as hot of a take, but as Paul Heyman, a wrestling guy would say, this is not a prediction. This is a spoiler. Because of this report coming out, and Vrabel will be all comfortable thinking I'm untouchable, I'm invincible. Spoiler, the Tennessee Titans are going to lose on Sunday. I can see it happening because we have the reverse Vrabel special. We tend to lose to teams we have no business losing to. And I get this feeling with this report coming out. He's so comfortable. He thinks he can't be touched. He'll just coach half-tailed, and they are going to fall. Don't fall to Will Levis probably, but I see it. I don't want it to happen, but I think that's what's going to happen. They are going to fall, and they're going to the organization will look stupid for it.
I got to tell you, I will be making my picks later this hour, Chris. Good take, though, on Fireball Hot Take Friday, and have a great rest of your holiday weekend, Chris. Thank you for your call.
You too.
I don't know, like, they're not going to lose to the Panthers, right? Like, this Panther team is atrocious. Like, they are, I mean, they are just downright awful. And I feel terrible for Bryce Young because I feel like they've probably ruined him to some extent. But they're not going to lose this game, are they? And I don't root for the Titans to lose. Now, I'm not one of these people that says never root for your team to lose. Like, I remember the last game of the 2015 season where the Titans went to Indianapolis, who had signed Josh Freeman off the street like Wednesday of that week, and you had Zach Mettenberger at quarterback. And I was thinking, yeah, I want you to lose because I want you to get the number one pick. And some people will say, don't ever root for your team to lose. And I don't believe that. If it helps your team in the long run by losing, then I'm okay with it. Now, over time, like I want my team to win. And the Titans are certainly my team. What I don't do is what I have been accused of in the past, which is, hoping that bad things happen to the Titans because it's good for the radio. I don't believe in that. I think there's nothing better for the radio than having a good team that wins a lot. That is how you get people to listen to the radio. Now, I'm not stupid enough to think that me and Floyd didn't get incredibly lucky in the first year of a 2-year agreement with the station of, hey, we're going to try this afternoon show out for 2 years. And the Predators go to the Cup final the first summer of it. Don't think that I'm not stupid enough to think, or that I am, trying to think of the right word, like conceited enough to not think that was really helpful for us. So winning is always good, but this radio show on Monday, if they lose to Carolina, after the Diana report yesterday, woo, that's going to be wild. I will tell you that. I haven't made my prediction yet. I don't know how to feel about whether or not they're going to win or lose. One texter into the text line says you absolutely can blame the coach. The team has regressed in every phase of the game. That's bad game planning and lack of player development. I think they have a lack of player development. I think they have bad game planning. I think that, their strategy is horrendous. But I also think that their concept of team building doesn't make a lot of sense to me either. And then their personnel evaluations, which the coach is now a part of, I think is also a problem. I like Skoronski fine, and I think he'll ultimately be a decent player. But what you're getting for what you invested is not like Peter Skoronski's been a massive disappointment this year. And then every time I hear people on Twitter get mad, this Titan Twitter group that just always they always believe what they want to hear and not what the truth is. They're like, Skoronski is not just okay, Jared. I'm like, watch tape. Watch tape. Right now, he's a below average guard. I think some of that might be the coaching and the lack of it that he's getting here. But he's not. I mean, when you draft a guard with the 11th overall pick, he ought to be going right to the Pro Bowl. And Skoronski is not. And I'm not making excuses for him either. You will. I'm not. So I think their evaluation is horrible. I think their team building is terrible. I think their idea of how to build a football team is terrible. Take the guard ahead of the quarterback? Draft a quarterback in a second round, use a future third-round pick on it, then say, oh, yeah, no, we're not sure if he's any good or not. Well, how are you going to find out this year? After 1 year, Vince Young looked like he was the next coming. Rick Meyer had a good rookie season. Peyton Manning didn't. So how are you going to know after 1 year if Levis is your guy or not? And the answer is you're not. But they're so stupid, they probably think they will, which is incredibly disheartening. Corey Curtis, News 2, will join us next special time because we're on at a special time here on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman Company Black Friday special. And again, the big report out yesterday. Diana Rossini says in The Athletic, high-level sources, has to be ownership. High-level sources telling her Mike Vrabel is not going anywhere. Not by trade, not by firing. And I am reminded when the Titans put out a statement that Mike Mularkey was going to be their head coach going forward, only to fire him less than a week later. With that, Corey Curtis, News 2, joins us on the program. So, Corey, let's start there. Your reaction to the Diana Rossini report that came out yesterday that no way, no how will Mike Vrabel not be the coach of the Titans next year.
Well, John Robinson also got an extension and less than a year later got fired. So, that's worth what it is. And, I mean, who have we always felt Diana Rossini's sources were?
Well, usually we thought they were Vrabel, but in this case, I mean, Retro pointed this out yesterday, and I think some of this is backing a teammate in Diana, but the New York Times is not letting you is not going to let you report that if her source isn't basically ownership.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure she's solid. I mean, she knows what she's doing. I'm not questioning her. I'm just, I agree. I don't think he's going to be fired, but and I know if things continue to go sideways, no one's untouchable.
So I really don't know what to think here. I mean, to me, Corey, it's one of two things. It's either ownership is telling you can bitch all you want, Vrabel's going to be the coach, or they're really doing, hey, we won't get rid of him no matter what, a.k.a. Robert Kraft, if you want, you're going to have to pay up in order to get Mike Vrabel. Like, it could be one or the other. I think they're committed to the commission, which depresses me highly.
Look, do I think that they believe in Mike Vrabel? Yes, I do. But I also believe in kind of what you're saying, that it doesn't make any sense to leave there any question. The stronger your commitment is to him, the higher his value is if someone indeed wants to make a trade for him. So it doesn't make any sense to say anything other than that. And also it doesn't make any sense to your football team to question the head coach, because once the players smell blood in the water, their commitment to that guy tends to wane. So, this is the proverbial, vote of confidence without there being an actual vote.
Do you think that, let's say that, so you're telling me you think Vrabel's on the hot seat?
No, I don't. I don't think he's on the hot seat. But look, if they finish the year 3-14, do I think he's on the hot seat? Yeah.
So what bothers me about this is that I don't really trust Rand Carthon either. And I know people will tell me that he hasn't had enough time, but does Andre Dillard and Arden Key and Aaron Brewer and this way the draft went down, does none of this count as an opportunity to lose my trust? Does everything in the first year, like I was just rookie mistake, he went to the combine and it got out that they were shopping Derrick Henry, rookie mistake. Like, are we really supposed to do that? Or should we look at these things critically and say, wait a minute, you want to give this guy $100 million in the 4th overall pick? I struggle with Rand. I mean, to be honest with you, if I owned this team, I'd fire both of them at the end of the year if things didn't improve drastically. But everybody gets mad at me every time I say that.
No, you know what, though? You get paid for people to get mad at you, so you just keep saying what you want to say. You forgot he traded Kevin Byard for a 5 and a 6.
That is true.
Look, it is fair, absolutely fair to question. Every GM, I always say this, they've got hits and misses without question. For as much as everybody hated Rustin Webster, he made some awfully good moves while he was the team's GM, believe it or not. That helped this organization out. He had some whopper mistakes, that had a lot to do with Ken Wisenhunt and such, but he had some mistakes, but he also had some successes. And every GM does. It's inevitable because every draft pick, every free agent signing is a bit of a gamble. But and I know that you can minimize that gamble with quality research and quality scouting. And when you see Andre Dillard, it makes you question the process, right? Mm-hmm. And question, how was this mistake made? Because this one seems like it was wholeheartedly avoidable. Look, we won't know about this draft for a few years because, we like Will Levis right now, and Will Levis could wind up being Tom Brady. He could also wind up being Vince Young. We just don't know at this point. And, we think Peter Skoronski can be good. He's got, obviously some work to do. And we think, Tajay Spears has some ability, hasn't really been able to show it off yet. So, I don't think we can call any of these guys a bust. I don't think we can call any of them a home run at this point because we just don't know. But there are good moves, and then there are. I mean, look, we talked about the Kevin Byard for 5 and 6. There was also, asking Kevin Byard to take a pay cut. I mean, that didn't sit well with a lot of people, including myself. He's trying to do his job, all right, and that's fine. But if you don't win, all those things come home to roost. Just ask John Robinson.
Corey Curtis is with us, News 2. How bad will it be, speaking of if they don't win on Sunday against Carolina?
Fans are already – see, okay, I think one of the key parts of this game is how the Titans start. Because if they start poorly, I am confident the boos will rain down. I mean, rain down hard. Fans are not happy. They've grown accustomed to winning, all right? And so, being bad – shouldn't be acceptable to anybody paying $150 for a ticket to go see a football game and see their team perform well. And so if they perform poorly, it will be bad. It will be bad. Because, I mean, look, the Panthers are the worst team in the league. And if you lose to them on your home field, guess what that makes you? The worst team in the league. And that's what we'd be looking at.
I was surprised, Corey Curtis, by this little nugget in the Diana piece that hasn't really gotten much play. In fact, I brought this up, and people were like, I didn't see this report from Diana Rossini. And I'm like, it's in the Vrabel report, where she says, quote, while the Titans are still trying to figure out if rookie quarterback Will Levis is their quarterback of the future, the clearest vision this team has is who will be their leader for years to come. And that's in reference to Vrabel. But she's saying that they're not even convinced that Will Levis is the quarterback of the future yet. I think that is ridiculous. I think that when they drafted Levis, they made him the quarterback of the future, just like the Indianapolis Colts made Anthony Richardson the quarterback of the future when they drafted him. I think Diana's probably telling the truth, that the Titans really aren't that committed to Levis. This has the opportunity to be an unmitigated disaster, because I don't see how there's any way we're going to know if Levis is a franchise quarterback at the end of this year with this offensive line and this wide receiving core and everything else, these terrible coaches. And yet, that's their expectation for Levis. So almost like the standards for Vrabel, which are, can't blame him for 1 year. Carthon, can't blame him for 1 year. Levis, I'm not going to blame him.
Things. One, we all know Levis is not Zach Wilson, all right? I mean, we're all pretty confident of that. He processes quickly, and that is one of the big keys at that position. That's one of the things that makes Brock Purdy so successful is the ability to process quickly and get rid of the football and move the football, throw it deep and throw it accurate. He does all those things. So there's a lot that tells you he is their quarterback of the future, along with the draft position, along with the fact that they traded up to get him, along with the fact that the GM that drafted him should be here for a few years at least, unless you decide to buy the team. So those things would all suggest that he should be the quarterback of the future. And again, suggest maybe that Mike Vrabel had something to do with this Diana Rossini report. That's just me. The other thing is, if the Titans pick in the top 3 in the draft, they may be in position to take Caleb Williams or a Drake May. And at that point, if you think that guy's a generational quarterback, it doesn't matter how you feel about Will Levis. It's like the Chicago Bears. They can like Justin Fields. They can think, we think Justin Fields could be a Super Bowl quarterback for us. But if you think Caleb Williams is Andrew Luck, you have to take him. You have to take him, because you have to have that skill. And also, by the way, you then also have a massive commodity. You have a commodity no matter who your quarterback is, the backup is at that point. So, from that aspect, I could see you're not committed to him. And Vrabel has seemed cagey at best about Will, this entire time. But he also admitted that there's quote, obviously something there, and we all can see it. The body of work is not huge at this point, and as you're pointing out, the path is treacherous for him. But I think we can also learn things about him on that treacherous path, and I think one of the things we've learned at this point is he will keep fighting, and he will keep has been promising.
Corey Curtis, News 2, is with us. I do want your opinion on this because I feel like there's a lot of revisionist history about what really went down at the end of the Mike Mularkey tenure here, because I think we have to bring this up.
Oh, boy.
I think we have to bring this up right now for two reasons. One, the Titans told us they weren't firing Mularkey, and then they turned around and they fired him. And I think we have to remember that. And I think the second part about this is Mularkey won a playoff game for the first time in almost 15 years around here and got fired. And right now they're 3 out of their last 17, and people are still defending the coach, including them. The one thing is like every time I bring this up, people say, well, Mularkey wouldn't fire Rubisky. End of story. And that enough is that
baloney.
I believe, this is just me, Corey, I believe that John Robinson wanted Mike Mularkey fired one way or another, and that even though the circumstances dictated that Mularkey should have kept his job and the Titans told everybody he was going to keep his job, Robinson still found a way to get his way, and that this had nothing to do with Rubisky and that Mularkey got done wrong. And we need to keep that in mind when thinking forward about how this group operates.
Look, Mularkey took a team with 5 wins in 2 years and turned it into a playoff team, back-to-back winning seasons. Whatever fans want to say about him, the guy turned this organization around. Number one. Number 2, John Robinson was going to hire Mike Vrabel. That was just going to happen. I mean, there are certain things that I know for a fact happened. All of the reports that he could be fired said John Robinson wanted to fire him. After the Texans came to town that season, I think it was about week 10, pretty much communication was shut off between the GM and the head coach. Okay? They were like in the middle, they were like 7-3 or something at that point, and the GM had stopped talking to the head coach. So who came through town when the Texans came through town?
Mm-hmm.
Mike Vrabel. And John Robinson obviously knew Mike Vrabel from his time. And so, and and I know that when J-Rob took over the job, he was going to want to hire his own head coach at some point, and he knew it was now or never for Vrabel because somebody else was going to hire him at some point. And am I connecting a lot of dots here? Yeah, I am. But I feel really good about the dots I'm connecting, especially from some of the people who I've talked to, about this. And yes, I know fans love to hate on Terry Rubisky, but every GM knows that coaches control their coaching staffs. And the surest way to get that coach to quit is to dictate coaching staff to them, okay? And that's what he did because he knew Mularkey would never stand for it, and it was an easy lever to pull to fire him. I mean, it was completely transparent, and it was an easy sell to fans because Rubisky was public enemy number 1.
Well said. Fireball Hot Take Friday. What's your hot take this week?
Oh, I'll never trust the Green Bay Packers. Just when I think they stink, they win a couple of games and just absolutely break my heart. I just can't take it. No, you know what my hot take is? I am completely absorbed and can't wait for the NFL playoffs because the 49ers and the Eagles are really good, all right? And, the Chiefs are obviously good and the Ravens are good. But I want to see how good the Cowboys and the Dolphins are when we get to the playoffs.
I would tell you right now.
That's what I want to see.
Dallas, I can guarantee you that Dallas is getting to the division round of the playoffs, and they will lose to either Philadelphia or San Francisco when they get there.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. But both of those teams can look so good against everybody else. I want to see them when the pressure's on. And I guess I want to see them perform well. I'm tired of watching them be Lucy from the Peanuts cartoon and pull the football away from me.
Oh, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. We spent an entire year of watching it. We're going to have an entire season just so that we can get right back to Eagles, Niners in the NFC title game.
Those teams are so good. I mean, I don't know what happened. I mean, they were banged up when the 49ers lost those 3 straight games. But you watch them the last 2 weeks, man, this team is really
The Cowboys' only hope is that somebody gets hurt on either team, somebody really, really important, and that there's a slip up there because Dak Prescott is not going on the road to San Francisco or Philadelphia and outplaying Philadelphia or San Francisco. We've seen enough of it to know.
The Cowboys have won every game at home by over 20 points.
Yeah. But they won't. We'll see when they play the Eagles, though. Corey Curtis, as always, Corey.
Look, I agree with you. But I need to see it. I need to see it.
Corey, have a very happy rest of your holiday weekend.
Thank you, Jared. You too.
Yep, Corey Curtis joining us from News 2, as he always does on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Coming up next, 6-pack picks. We're going to roll right through it. We got Chad, we got hockey, we got so much to get to. Coming up, Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106 for the game. All right, we got a loaded last hour of our program. Chad Withrow from Outkick, normally a Fireball Hot Take Friday staple. He'll join us. Hal Gill will join us from St. Louis, where the Preds get set to play. And so with that, let's get right to six-pack picks, our official predictions of the week. David, Ian did not leave you with how we did last week, but I think I did pretty well. But we will add these games to the tally next week when Ian's back and leaving all the information. So let's go right to it, David. What game are we starting with?
Well, so if I can play.
There you go.
There you go. We got it. We finally figured it out. Okay, so we're going to go to Eugene, Oregon, and see tonight, which is at 7:30 on Fox, Oregon State, number 16, at number 6, Oregon. Oregon is minus 14.
I'm taking Oregon. Will Stein, the offensive coordinator of the Ducks, has turned Bo Nix into the Heisman Trophy winner. This is going to be kind of the sprinkles on the Sunday for Bo to win the Heisman, and then I think that the cherry on top will be the Pac-12 championship game next week. I think Oregon, this is the last, this is sad. This is kind of the last rivalry between them. It should be a good game. I know Oregon's very nervous about playing Oregon State, but I'll take the Ducks to quack tonight on Fox.
All right, we're going to go to your big game that you have very much.
Big game.
Yeah, so we're going to go with Kentucky at number 10, Louisville, tomorrow at 11 a.m. on ABC. Louisville is 7.5-point favorites.
I am going to take Kentucky to cover. I think Louisville's going to win. But I think this is going to be a very close game. I cannot stand our quarterback, Jack Plummer. I think that, the weird thing about the Louisville-Kentucky rivalry is it feels like whenever we play Kentucky, it brings out the best in them and the worst in us. The only time we ever beat Kentucky in these rivalry games is whenever we are clearly the better team. And we are clearly the better team. So I think we're going to win. But I think it's going to be ugly. I think it's going to be cold. I think it's going to be one of those setting football back years kind of games. So I think Kentucky will cover, and Louisville will end up winning by 3 or 4 points. Even though they have been great at home, I don't trust the quarterback. I'll take Kentucky to cover the minus 7.5.
I think I kind of believe you.
It hurts my heart to say it, but I guess it is reality here. You were close.
There you go. We figured it out. Okay, so we're going to go to one of the biggest games in college football right now, obviously besides the Louisville game. It is the game, number 2, Ohio State, first at number 3, Michigan, tomorrow at 11 a.m. on Fox. Michigan is 3.5-point favorites.
I think Michigan will win. I think the game being at Michigan is a big step in the right direction. I think Sharon Moore is a great acting head coach for Michigan. I think he's done a fantastic job with Harbaugh kind of in and out there. And quite frankly, I just don't think Ohio State's very good. So I'll take Ohio State. I think Ohio State will win handedly tomorrow.
Over under on how many times Sherum's going to cry?
He probably is going to cry a little bit. It's a little disheartening to me that he busted out in the tears the way he did after that Penn State game. I've known Sharon Moore for about a decade. He's a real good man and a real good coach. And I'm like, dude, what are we doing here? Come on.
Yeah. Let's stop with the crying antics.
Yeah, you're not that big of a victim. Harbaugh got suspended. You'll be okay.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll go to the NFL right now. Jacksonville at Houston, noon on CBS. Jackson is 1-point favorites. What do you think?
I'm going to take Jacksonville. I think when it comes to Houston, I think that they're still they're good, for what they're supposed to be. But I don't think they're a good team in the league yet. I do believe Jacksonville is. So I think Jacksonville will win this game. They've already lost to Houston once this year. I don't think they'll lose twice. Give me Jacksonville to cover and to win.
I feel that. I agree with that as well. But we're going to go into the 3:25 game on CBS. It's Buffalo at Philly. Philly is 3.5-point favorites. Who do you think?
I'm going to go with Philadelphia. I think if the game were at Buffalo, I could see it going the other way, but I just something's wrong with Buffalo. I know they beat the Jets last week, but the Jets stink, and Zach Wilson stinks, and Philadelphia does not. I think Philly might be the best team in the NFL. Them in San Francisco next week is a get your popcorn ready kind of game. I will take Philadelphia to cover the 3 and win at home.
Go Birds. All right, now we got the big game that everyone's been waiting to hear what Jared is going to pick. Carolina at Tennessee. Noon game on Fox. Tennessee is 3.5-point dogs. Or 3.5-point favorites, by the way.
I have been debating this all day in my head because both teams freaking stink. I'm taking the Panthers.
Wow.
I think the Panthers are going to win on Sunday. I think things are so bad as far as just the morale around here. I think it's going to be empty seats galore on Sunday. I'm not even probably going to the game. I think the fans are fed up with Vrabel. I think that Vrabel's coaching, I think the shelf life is over. I think this is going to be one of those games where the Titans just get their rear ends spanked. Carolina probably looks at this as, hey, this is a game we got to win. I'll go Carolina 24, Tennessee 17. I think that the Panthers defense is the only good unit on either side, and I think that will be the difference in this game. Give me Panthers 24, Titans 17.
Wow.
Those are our six-pack picks for the week. Coming up next, Chad Withrow will join us from Outkick, as he always does on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. Stillman Co., 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical Studios on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. And it's a little bit earlier than normal on the special Thanksgiving post-Black Friday show, whatever you want to call it. But Chad Withrow, kind enough to join us, as always, here on the program on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. So, Chad, let's start. Diana Rossini, yesterday morning. I wake up, it's Thanksgiving morning, and right there on Twitter, Diana Rossini says Mike Vrabel is not going anywhere. She says she talked to high-level sources, which, I mean, I already knew this, that, like, if a Diana Rossini says high-level sources, like, it kind of has to be the owner. But Joe Rexrode was texting me yesterday, and he was like, the New York Times sources, these are serious sources, obviously company man with The Athletic trying to whatever. I think it's one of the owners that told Diana that Vrabel's coming back no matter what. What do we make of it?
Well, I saw Joe's response to Joe Dubin and his Joe Dubin's joke, which I thought was funny. And also, Joe Dubin is very rarely serious on any social media platform, so I just assume everything that he puts is a joke. But, yeah, I mean, look, when Diana Rossini has a story on the Titans, it's usually accurate, and she usually gets it first, right, regardless of her sourcing or anything else. So I'm going to buy this story as completely accurate also. And coming from the ownership, coming from Vrabel, coming from multiple people within the organization. And I buy it. I think Amy Adams-Strunk does love Mike Vrabel. It leads me to a different question, though, of what would it take for Mike Vrabel to start getting some blame? And the more I think about this and I see reports like that, Jared, I don't know that there's anything this year that could happen. I think it's just a complete throwaway. I think that, Amy Adams-Strunk looks at this team and has just decided, well, if they win a game, it's a bonus the rest of the way. And I'm not really concerned with it. And I'm going to listen to what Rand Carthon and Mike Vrabel tell me about the team. Now, if they come back next year and it's a similar story, and it doesn't look like it's headed in the right direction, things could obviously change. But I think a report like that is just a statement that this is now a throwaway season. They tried to go for the playoffs 1 year too many. They realized they weren't going to get there no matter how hard they tried. And they decided to turn the page and move forward with a second-round quarterback to see what they had with that second-round quarterback. But, again, if Diana Rossini reports it on the Titans, it is accurate, and she is first. So I'm totally buying this report.
So I don't question Diana, reporting what she has been told by a high-level source, which I assume is the owner. Like, I don't doubt that at all. I don't think Diana's making it up. I don't think that it's not true. I don't any of that. But I go back to the Mike Mularkey ending, right? And remember after they beat the Chiefs, the Titans sent out an email with a statement from the owner saying, Mike Mularkey is our football coach and will be our football coach going forward. And then they still fired him. We've always talked about with athletic directors and everything, the dreaded vote of confidence. I do wonder if that might be some of this. Ben Volen of the Boston Globe, replied to the Diana story yesterday and said, quote, Patriots, if you want Vrabel, it's going to cost you, as kind of like a warning shot there. Do you think that there could be something, like, does the past history of how the Titans ownership has, quite frankly, lied about the coach in the past, does that play a role into thinking what this may truly mean?
Well, it's all about who Amy Adams-Strunk relies on and who she's getting her information from. Because the Mularkey thing, if I'm remembering correctly, was more of a Mike Mularkey was stubborn and didn't make the changes on staff that he was asked to make.
Well, that's what it was after he had been fired. Then it kind of was we asked him to fire Rubisky and I'd say that the media people that are close to Mularkey in Nashville don't necessarily view it that way. They kind of view it as J-Rob was out to get him no matter what.
Well, and maybe that's the case, but this gets back to my broader point. I buy that, by the way, the first part of this, that he was asked to get rid of Terry Rubisky and maybe some others, and he refused to do it to save his job. And then John Robinson, who didn't love him to begin with, really drove home the point that, hey, this guy's stubborn. He's not going to get in line with the players that I'm bringing him, and we need to make a change. I do believe that's what happened with Mularkey. So something did change there. I think that Amy Adams-Strunk, ownership, everyone wanted him to be around, and then he wasn't going to bend to John Robinson, so they got rid of him. That's what would have to change with Mike Vrabel. He would have to somehow not become the trusted source of information for Amy Adams-Strunk. Because that time John Robinson was trusted above Mike Mularkey. And when Mike Mularkey didn't do exactly what John Robinson wanted, John Robinson could go to the owner and say, see, he's not going to play ball. We got to get rid of him. I don't know what it's going to take for Rand Carthon or anyone else in the organization to replace Mike Vrabel as that trusted source of information, right? So if that's the case, Mike Vrabel's not going to go tell on himself and say, hey, this is where I failed you, and this is the things I've messed up. It's going to have to get insanely bad for Amy Adams-Strunk to not like and trust Mike Vrabel and not want him to be the head coach. So I kind of think for Titans fans that are, getting fed up with Vrabel or feel like he should be on the hot seat,
strip clubs,
disappointing news for you. But I just think that's where they are. I think it's going to have to get horrifically bad before Amy Adams-Strunk turns on Mike Vrabel.
If you own the Titans, would you give Vrabel the benefit of the doubt, or would you be holding his feet to the fire?
I mean, if they go 3-14, let's say, I'm holding his feet to the fire next year. Then, I mean, the feet to the fire is you got to improve big time. Like, we need to see something this year. I'm not saying, playoffs or pink slips or anything, but we got to see something this year that this roster, first off, I'm going to give you money to spend. You got to improve this team in the offseason. Let's draft well. And you got to show me this team is headed in the right direction to where, the year after, I could actually believe that this team could compete for the division again. If that's not the case, you got to go in a different direction. So, I mean, after this season, if this continues to go this way, which I see no reason why it's not going to continue going this way, then I'm holding his feet to the fire in 2024.
See, what I think bothers me about that, Chad Withrow is with us from Outkick. What I think bothers me about that, though, is this idea that, okay, going into the offseason, I'm probably going to have like the 4th overall pick, and I'm going to have roughly $100 million to spend or whatever it is they're going to end up allowing you to spend cash-wise. Who knows with this ownership? But, you're going to have real money to spend. The Titans ownership is not going to be able to go to the fans, spend $60 million in free agency and say, oh, well, we can't because of the cap, so they'll have real money to spend this offseason. But I don't trust these guys right now. I don't trust the duo that brought me the greatest hit, Andre Dillard and Arden Key. I don't trust them to spend my $100 million, and I don't trust them to use my 4th overall draft pick correctly. I mean, Titans Twitter has a hard time acknowledging this. Peter Skoronski's not very good right now. Now, I think that has more to do with the bozo offensive line coach Vrabel hired, which is another problem. But he's not very good right now. So that was supposed to be the safest pick you could make. So I'm going to give you the 4th overall pick. Like, this could be a franchise-altering decision right here with the 4th overall pick. And I'm going to give it to you and let you make it, even though since you've been in charge, you've been screwing everything up. That's what drives me crazy, Chad.
Well, and it's not just the 4th overall pick and everything that comes with it, Jared. It's the fact that you're going to have to let this brain trust make the decision on quarterback, period, right?
Sure.
They've got to take what they see from Will Levis this year behind a terrible offensive line in a bad offense and decide whether or not he's the guy moving forward. That's a big part of this, too. So it's not just what that 4th pick is used on. Could be used on a quarterback if they don't believe in Will Levis, right? So all of those decisions are huge. I mean, I get it. I understand the anxiety that you have with all this and allowing them to make those big franchise decisions where they haven't had a good track record here as of late. And here's the sort of rock and a hard place for Titans fans to look at this situation. On the one hand, I totally see it. Mike Vrabel, really good head coach to start his tenure. Things have gone south in the last year and a half, but it's not been all bad with Mike Vrabel. So I can understand feeling one way or the other on Vrabel. But the fact that you either ride it out and allow the guy that you may have doubts about try to steer this ship out of deadly waters, out of the storms right now, and try to find the right guys for this franchise, knowing that if they can't do it with him and Rand Carthon, and I'm including both of them because it's not just an either-or proposition, they're both going to have to come together. and then Mike Vrabel is going to get final say. But they're going to have to come together on these draft picks and free agents and everything else. Knowing that if they screw it up, you have set your rebuild back another 2 years, right? This could be a quick rebuild. This could be a 2024 get better, 2025 compete type thing, or this could be a whiff on the fourth pick, as you said, horrible free agency again, make another couple bad decisions on current players on the roster, draft poorly again this next year, and you're looking at what, 2027 until you're relevant again and competing. So I understand the anxiety that fans may have about allowing these guys to make that decision. Rand Carthon has not been there long enough for me to completely say, hey, I don't trust him to do this.
Oh, I don't trust him.
His track record's not good so far. He's also given me no reasons to think that he's the guy that's going to steer the Titans out of this, right? And Mike Vrabel, it's just the trajectory is headed in the complete opposite direction of someone that you would have faith in. So, look, I don't think Mike Vrabel's on the hot seat. I don't think he should be fired. But do I understand the anxiety of Titans fans right now? Absolutely.
You know what kills me, Chad, is, and I don't want, I'm not going to name names and throw people under the bus here, but the local media or certain individuals in the local media that are just so staunch in this Vrabel defense as if he is not culpable whatsoever in the just unmitigated disaster of a football team that is in front of them right now. And they're the same people that understood firing Mike Mularkey. The more Mike Vrabel loses, the more I think Mike Mularkey got done dirty. I always thought Mularkey got done dirty. I get it. He was an older coach. Vrabel's a younger coach, whatever. But, I thought he did pretty wrong considering that they hadn't been to the playoffs in a decade and they won a playoff game for the first time in almost 15 years and he still got canned. And now watching this and it's can't blame Vrabel for any of this. I'm where are the standards around here? And it's honestly driving me crazy.
Well, and I think a lot of that is people that I think so oftentimes when people go so hard the other direction on opinions, it's because they have an issue with the opinion maker. Or they have an issue with the part of the fan base that does have a problem with Mike Vrabel. With fans, it's they're online, so I have this issue with this other faction of the fan base because I don't like them, and they're all over Mularkey. Or I'm a media member, and I don't like Jared Stillman, and he's all over Mularkey. Or, Caroline Fenton's holding Mularkey's feet to the fire, and I don't like her opinions on sports, so I'm going to go the opposite. I don't know that there's a lot of genuine opinion anymore. Not just in local Nashville media, which I see that being a problem right now. I think across the country, you get a lot of that. I feel like you have genuine opinion on most everything that you're throwing out there. I feel like I have pretty genuine opinion on everything I throw out there. I'm not trying to play both sides at all.
Sure.
I'm really kind of just in the middle on this where I can see both sides of it. I'm not completely blaming Mike Vrabel for everything right now and thinking he should get fired. But he's done a bad job this year, right? I think every Titans fan should start with that baseline. You can go ahead and say, well, they lost the quarterback and there's nothing anyone could have done with Malik Willis and then Josh Dobbs at the end of the year last year. Okay, maybe that's true, but he still didn't win a single game.
Yeah.
Down the stretch where all they had to do was win one game and go to the playoffs. So that's not good, but if you want to put that on the quarterback injury, fine. I'm willing to accept that. But this year, yeah, the quarterback got injured again, but he's done a poor job with this team. It hasn't clicked. I don't think this locker room is that strong, quite frankly. I think Jeffrey Simmons is becoming a poor leader in how he won't look in the mirror at his own performance. That's a Mike Vrabel problem because the big selling point of Mike Vrabel is what? He's this Patriots guy that's going to instill in the fabric of this team and organization an attitude, a team mantra of accountability, of being a good teammate, of going about your business in a quiet way, of not the Patriot way, but sort of the Vrabel way, which is an offshoot of the Patriot way. And I'm not seeing that as much this year. It starts with Kevin Byard being upset in the offseason when he was asked to take a pay cut. And then it just continued to bleed into the season. This has been a poor job. I think that you have to just recognize that to start. I don't care if you're the biggest Mike Vrabel fan. You got to recognize he's done a poor job this season. He really has. Now, whether or not you think he should be fired for that, that's another story. I don't think he should for this season, but he's done a bad job this season. So if you acknowledge that, going into next season and this offseason, is not just vitally important for those guys, and I'm talking about Carthon and Vrabel, but for the future of the franchise, then ask yourself, are you fully comfortable with those two guys making every decision this offseason that's going to affect the next 5 years of your franchise?
With that, we have a special holiday edition of the Hot Seat, which we'll do next with Chad, Stillman and Company, Fireball Hot Take Friday, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. More Fireball Hot Take Friday here on a special Black Fireball Hot Take Friday on Black Friday. Chad Withrow with us from Outkick. Chad, let's get right to the hot seat. Question number 1. If the Titans lose on Sunday to Carolina, will Will Levis be the Titans quarterback in 2024?
That is a good one. I'd have to see how they lost, first and foremost. Like, well, what if the defense falls apart, like they've been disappointing all year, and Bryce Young has a big day, and they get in a quarterback duel, and Will Levis loses 34-31. You know, that could factor in. I'm going to say yes, he's still going to be the quarterback next year, because I just don't see, at least for the start, I don't see the Titans. I don't trust their decision-making with quarterback right now. And I feel like the tie or the default is going to go to the guy they've already seen in-house to at least start next season. So I'm going to say that the outcome on Sunday against a terrible Panthers team, which the Titans are not good either, I don't think it's going to make one bit of difference on who's the quarterback next year. So I'm going to say he is still going to be the quarterback even with a loss.
If the Titans lose on Sunday, will they end up in position to draft one of the 2 quarterbacks in this year's class?
I don't think so. Just looking at it right now, because I think those guys are probably going 1 and 2, depending on who has it. So I'm going to say no. Also, I only like one of the 2 quarterbacks in this year's draft. So if it's Drake May, we can get to this in a future show. The Titans are going to have a decision to make if Drake May's there. I don't want them, much like I was against the Will Levis draft pick. I'm very much against Caleb Williams, and it's even more extreme for personality issues.
There's just so many red flags with Williams.
So many red flags. So many red flags. I mean, do you think how many? First off, going back to Lincoln Riley, how many strong coaches in the SEC or elsewhere would allow their quarterback to put F whoever the team is on their nails before every game? That to me right there is weird on both Lincoln Riley and him. He put up 44 points a game, but the team lost 5 games this year. The crying in the stand, I don't care about a guy crying or any of that, but it was just odd. The ducking out of media availability time and time again. I'm telling you, I would not draft Caleb Williams with a high draft pick. Now, if he's there in the second round, maybe like a Will Levis situation where you think he's a top 5 pick, maybe you take a chance on him. But I like Drake May far better than Caleb Williams.
What if you interviewed him at the Combine? We'll make this the next question. Let's say you interview Caleb Williams at the Combine. You're holding the 4th or 3rd pick or whatever, and he says to you, yeah, Mr. Withrow, the reason why I acted the way I acted is because I didn't want to go to Chicago or Arizona. And so he comes away from that interview having impressed you, given that all the public stuff has been like one disaster after another this year.
See, then I would still I would not want him even more, because you don't do that. Like that's not. So you're going to tell me you're going to have a bad attitude and do some dumb things as the leader of a team in college because you so adamantly to a league you haven't even played in yet decided you don't want to go to one or two franchises.
Fair point.
And you sabotage yourself and in turn your teammates by doing that. I would not want him even more. And I'll say this too. Caleb Williams' dad spouting off the mouth about, we're going to seek ownership, partial ownership in the team we go to, and there are certain teams that we won't go to and maybe we'll come back and play in college. Who's to say the Titans aren't one of those teams?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why would Caleb Williams be dying to go to the Titans right now if they're picking high? I mean, answer that. If it's not Arizona and Chicago, why the Titans behind this offensive line? Behind an organization that has not been able to field an offensive line since Taylor Lewan. So I'm not so certain that he's not got the Titans on his blacklist of teams that he won't play for.
Next one. How much criticism does Mike Vrabel deserve for his coaching staff?
All of it. I mean, it's his staff. If you got a problem for the staff, that's on Mike Vrabel. And I just think Mike Vrabel, if there's a weakness with him, he's a guy that shows a lot of flexibility from game to game with his game plans and what he's done in the past. And he doesn't have a lot of flexibility when it comes to his coaches, his way of doing things at times. He's very stubborn. Now, you don't want the flip side of that, which is a coach who just changes because of the wind is blowing a certain direction every single week and season to season and does completely different things and fires guys and hires new guys. You don't want that extreme of it either. But I think Mike Vrabel is on the other extreme of being stubborn. So if you got a problem with Craig Ackerman, the special teams coach, or either of the coordinators or the offensive line coach, that's on Mike Vrabel. That's on him to make that move if it's that big of an issue.
Vanderbilt Athletic Director Candace Lee has come out, and she has basically given Clark Lee I would say a pass. She certainly didn't do that. But she has said that his job is not in danger. Vanderbilt takes on Tennessee on Saturday. Where is this headed? And if Clark Lee, if the best he can give is what we're looking at right now, is it just a reality that Vanderbilt's never going to, no new coach is ever going to come into Vanderbilt and just change things?
Well, it's so the Candace Lee statement was, I think it was something, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was like, he's the coach here until I say otherwise, right? Or
pretty much, yeah.
Like that. I'm thinking, well, yeah, okay, duh. You're the AD. That's true with any employee in the Vanderbilt athletic department. I don't know that it was a vote of confidence or it was just a statement of fact of what he's done. It's been bad for Clark Lee. That surprises me. I really like Clark. I think he's a smart guy. I think he had a clear plan for how to succeed at Vanderbilt. It has clearly not worked out. I don't see it getting better next year when you look at their schedule. And here this is kind of an undersold part of this. And look, this is a great thing about Vandy. They're 2-9. And you know how this works with the Vandy fan base. If they go to Knoxville and somehow pull off the New Mexico State level, spread upset that they had over, Auburn the week before and beat Tennessee and, make Tennessee 7-5 at the end of the year, but get that huge win, all is forgiven.
Yes.
Right? With the Vandy fan base. So while that's still a bad season at 3-9, all can be forgiven by the fan base if they go to Knoxville and win. I've thought about it, honestly, picking them in our little wrong team favored competition that we do. But just looking at Vandy, I can't do it because they just have shown no signs of life, right? The way Tennessee is playing and with all the injuries on Tennessee's defense, I thought maybe Vandy's going to go in and play like it's their Super Bowl, and they're going to have enough to at least put a scare in Tennessee. But this, again, is a statement of the season they've had. I don't see any bright spots right now. I just don't see anything they do well. They're the worst defense in the conference. They're the worst offense. They can't stop the run, and that's the one thing Tennessee does really well. So I just could not make that pick. Here's the big problem, though. Ray Davis left and had a huge year at Kentucky. What do you think that tells other good players on Vandy's team?
Yeah, leave.
What do you think
Get
that
out.
tells Langston Patterson? What do you think that tells, other guys that you would look at and say, boy, those are just patented Vanderbilt guys. Local private school products that are going to get big-time opportunities to make a lot of money, to make $200,000, $300,000 to go to a bigger SEC program. And now they see Ray Davis have all that success at Kentucky. Granted, the team is going to finish 6-6, but still they're going to go to a bowl, and he had a big year, and he played in front of a lot more people.
I hope you're right. I hope they finish 6-6.
Well, Vandy's got to figure out NIL. So I say all this, and I'm not letting Clark Lee off the hook or anything. They've got to figure out how they're going to utilize NIL because they have not done that. And they're just going to continue to lose their best players to other programs that are going to pay them more money. And then you really can't have a program because you can't develop guys. There's a reason Dave Clawson's all up in arms about Notre Dame playing the I Will Love You song for Sam Hartman, right? Because Wake Forest and Vanderbilt cannot compete if they cannot pay.
To that point, do you think now, looking at Clark Lee's tenure, do you think Derek Mason got done dirty at Vanderbilt by being fired for not winning a game in the SEC-only 2020 season?
No, because I can never fault Vanderbilt or anyone for saying, not winning a game is unacceptable. Like, they should be better under Clark Lee. Like, I don't think that it feels helpless right now if you look at Vanderbilt, but it doesn't have to be helpless. I think he needs some help. Vandy fans hate me for saying this, but I think playing in a dirt patch for a season doesn't look great. They can spin it however they want, but, I don't think they did a good job with that. I'd like to see the finished product, but that's going to take a while to get there. It's a tough spot to be in, but I really think Clark Lee's got to coach better, and he's got to make better decisions, and he's got to have probably better coordinators, at least on one side of the ball. But they have to figure out an NIL plan. And at Vanderbilt, you can make it work. You just have to find the deep-pocketed boosters or alums that actually care about sports. And there's not a ton of them that went to Vanderbilt, quite frankly. But you got to find those that do, and I think you can make it happen. But no, I don't think Derek Mason got a raw deal at Vanderbilt. I think it was time for him.
Last one. Outside of Ohio State, Michigan, what is the best game this weekend?
I'm going to go Florida State. I love this game. Florida has played, crazy enough, their offense has gotten better and better throughout the year. They look good even with the backup quarterback in the Missouri game after Graham Mertz went out. So I think Florida's got a really good shot. I'm even going to pick the Gators to win outright over Florida State and their backup. So in the battle of backup quarterbacks, I think Florida gets a huge win. Billy Napier gets to 6-6. There's going to be not as much hot seat on him this offseason with that win. And I think it's going to be the second best game of the week. But it is Michigan-Ohio State for sure. I'm going Florida State second.
See, I would say tonight, Oregon State. Now, Oregon hopefully will kill them, but maybe that could be, the last rivalry game between them and Oregon State's good. But I am intrigued by Florida State without Jordan Travis.
Bo Nix has had, I just read the stat this morning, Bo Nix has had over 400 yards combined offense and 4 touchdowns per game over the last 4 games, all of them. That's impressive. That's why Bo Nix is rising in the Heisman odds. I think that's going to be a good one. I don't think that Oregon State's defense is really good. I don't think they have enough offense to play with Oregon, but you never know. That's a great rivalry game. So, I think just in terms of numbers and rankings, that's the second best game. But I'm an SEC guy, Jared, so give me Florida State.
Well, I think that the big key for Bo Nix is his great offensive coordinator. Chad Withrow, as always, from Outkick. Chad, I know Thanksgiving is past us, but it's a weekend now anyways. Have a great holiday weekend. We'll talk soon.
We can just sing Happy Holidays and leave it at that.
There you go.
Thanksgiving yesterday, all the holidays coming up. Happy holidays, Jared, to you and all your listeners. Hey, good job working today. You know, I host a show called Hot Mic. You should host the show called Open Mic, because anytime the mic is open, you're there working. So great job by you.
There you go, Chad. Appreciate it as always. Stillman and Company. Again, we are on a Black Friday special today because the Preds pregame starts at 1 o'clock, live from St. Louis, where they take on the Blues tonight. 3 in a row since I started saying embrace the tank after the Anaheim loss. Great game on Wednesday. Hal Gill joins us from St. Louis, presented by Duncan. So, Hal, let's start there. 3 in a row. Now they take it on the road. What is the buzz like, the optimism level like? What's the excitement level like with the team as they have turned around what was a very tough start to the month?
All rainbows and sunshine, but they're finding ways to win, and they're finding ways to get to their game and playing fast, and it's a lot of fun to watch right now. So I think, you know, the test is going to be to see how long they can sustain the way that they're playing, and that has, you know, they went through 4 or 5 games where they just played pretty poorly, and now they're putting a streak together. So now they just got to keep it, and if they do that, then I think they're going to start climbing back up the ladder.
Taking a look at the standings, St. Louis sits 5 points ahead of the Predators, and they've both played 18 games. I mean, is it too early to be looking at that, saying, hey, you know, they've done a nice job. They're not in the cellar anymore. They've got Chicago in the rearview mirror. They've got Minnesota in the rearview mirror. They're right there, you know, with the game in hand on Arizona, to now start thinking about the teams that are ahead of them, or is it too soon to be looking at standings and talking about the importance of a game like this?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think normally when you're looking at, you know, You're looking at the 20-game mark. You're talking about Thanksgiving point. That time of year, you start to make decisions. But I think with this team and with the new coaching staff and with the new players, the new systems, everything's kind of new and fresh. So I think you have to give it a little more time. Just to get everything. You can't expect everything to be clicking. And the Preds were a team a few years ago, even that they were awesome and they were good, and we're expecting them to win. So you knew what they were about. This team is new, so I think you give them a little more space and say, okay, you had a rough start, and maybe you can start to put some wins together, and hopefully it's not a hole that they can't climb out of. Getting him back, how good was he the other night? Just really solid, and he brings so much to the team. So when you have him healthy and in the lineup, and then hopefully getting Luke Shen back in the lineup, and Cody Glass and Tommy Novak out of the lineup, so that they're going through some tough times injury-wise. And so I think if you get a healthy team and you get a team that's confident in what they're doing and the system that they're playing, maybe they make a run at it and start trying to edge up to St. Louis and all the other teams. You saw what they did with Colorado.
I asked you last week, I said, how much of what we were seeing was, the time that it takes to adjust to a new coach. And you said that you thought there was some of that. And now it does look, since they had that little mini break there, right? They get back from the road trip. They play at home Saturday, they lose. They play at home Tuesday, they lose. They're off that Thursday, play again Saturday. Since then, it has looked like a sharper operation. It has, especially less breakdowns in the D zone. How much of that is the team starting to kind of catch their groove with their coach?
Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it, and also you have younger players, and it's interesting. Periodically, it's been almost every young guy, with Evangelista being out of the lineup 2 games ago, Tomasino being out of the lineup, Parsonen taking time, even Yakov Trenin have missed games because the coaching staff feels like they need to get a quick reset, and he uses that because I think you go back to old habits and you take them out of a game, and then you establish, hey, okay, you got to work this way or else you're not going to play. And so I think by doing that, you're getting guys to commit to the system and commit to the way they're playing. And as a team, it kind of comes together that way. But it's all checks and balances, right? They got to keep on it and be active on hammering in that message and until it becomes second nature. And right now, I think they're starting to see it, and that's why you need the consistency. You need to see that game in and game out. They've had it 3 games to see if they can do it today.
Hal Gill is with us, presented by Duncan. What are the big challenges that are posed by St. Louis? Because to me, I just have the schedule pulled up in front of me. You've won 3 in a row. This is the one road game that you have until you get 4 more at home. I mean, if this team's going to make a run at it, this is kind of the one little gap in the road where it's a big divisional game, but you're not at home. And St. Louis is always tough, Hal.
It's always a physical. I mean, how many times have I been in this building and seen fights and scraps and just the compete to get to the front of the net, the battles
guys get knocked out. Like I remember Arvidsson a couple years ago got knocked out in St. Louis, and it is always a fierce. It is tough.
It's a battle, and I'm expecting the same thing. And like McCarron fighting last game, Lozon fighting. He's got 3 majors now. Like these guys are sticking up for each other, and they're playing a hard game, and it's going to be another hard one tonight. I'm not saying it's going to be a Donnybrook out there, but it's going to be a competitive, hard game to play, and I think that's good for this team. On the road, an afternoon game, it's right after Thanksgiving, so it's a different feel, but I think these guys are going to go out and compete, and it would be an awesome feeling, I know, for these guys to say, okay, we're going back home with 2 points, and we got 4 games at home, and I know if I'm in that locker room, I'm looking at the standings saying, okay, we can get back into this thing. We can rewrite that Thanksgiving dead mark. Like you say, hey, that deadline where you benchmark, where you say, okay, that's where our team is. You can kind of change that narrative with a big win here and then making hay at home for the next 4 home games.
Hal Gill is with us here on the program. I do wonder this. How much of what we've seen in the improved play of the team has been the goaltender shaking off the early season struggles that he feels like he always has?
Yeah, well, that's something that's a byproduct of the team. I don't think Juice was struggling. There was a lot of deflections. There's a lot of little gaps in the defensive structure that teams were taking advantage of. I think they've done, in a large part, you get McDonough back in, it helps a lot. But boxing out in front of Juice and letting him see the puck, I think is a huge thing that they've struggled with at times in protecting the front of the net and keeping players away from there. If you look back at the games that they were losing and the games that you said, okay, Juice wasn't very Juice-like, he had guys on the crease. He had guys in. Their deflections, off of Roman Yossi, off of Del Gaizo. There's all these plays that just pop into my head where I can't blame Juice for that because the defense needs to do a better job of boxing out. And they've been better at that, and they've been getting wins, and I think Juice looks really good.
Hal Gill is with us. Hal, what do you make of Ryan O'Reilly making his return to St. Louis tonight?
No, they love him here. He's got a ton of respect just walking in the arena. Everyone's talking about him coming back. Everywhere he goes, he gets that respect. So I'm expecting them to give him a warm welcome back, but I'm sure he's excited to come in here with a new team, fresh faces, and try to beat up on his former team.
So I have
he had a good run here. He played some great hockey on that cup run.
I always thought Ryan O'Reilly was a good player, before he got to St. Louis. I thought he was a really good player. But then when he got to St. Louis, it was like he almost became a great player for them. When they had a stretch of not just their cup run, but for the couple years that they were one of the top teams in the league.
Yeah, with him, it's the intangibles that I see. It's he doesn't pop off the page like McDavid or McKinnon. He's not that speed guy. And actually, when he was in Buffalo, I know they were like, he's too slow for the NHL. The game has passed him by. But when he came to St. Louis, he played that system to a T with Berube and moving the puck quick and playing fast as a team. And I think he thrives in that. And I think you're seeing him play faster with the Preds because they're trying to play a fast team game, moving the puck quickly. But all the little things, face-offs, killing penalties, the bumper on the power play, he does so many things, and he competes on pucks all over the ice, especially in the net front. So I love his game, and, obviously he played great for St. Louis, and I think he's really excited about being around a team that's young and starting to pop. And I think he's a big reason why this team could do some damage this year and could be a good team.
Last one for you. David Poile was added to the Preds Golden Hall, I believe is what it's going to be called. The team's Hall of Fame. David Poile was the first member inducted. I have been thinking in my head who I think, who I think are members of this Golden Hall. I certainly think David Poile belongs in there. I think Pecorine is going to be in there and belongs in there. I think Barry Trotz belongs in there when his tenure is over as both coach and general manager. Barry Trotz will be in there. I think Shea Weber should be in there. I think when Forsberg and Yossi's careers are over, they should be in there. I think Pete Weber and Terry Crisp should be in there.
Absolutely.
And I think Peter Laviolette should be in there. Do you have any?
Okay,
what do you think of this?
I don't know. I don't know about Lavi. You missed one big one, and we were talking about it last night. Craig Baugh, partner.
Oh, yeah, partner's got to be in the hall. Absolutely. Sure.
Has to go up there. Pete Rogers, a lifer here, the equipment manager. Those guys got to go in. Lavi, I don't know. I mean, like, he brought him to the finals. That's fantastic. He had some great teams, President's Trophy teams. But I don't know, longevity-wise, I don't know. That's the question I have. How you got to do it for a long time if you want to go in the Golden Hall.
I mean, I would just say this: there are 3 years worth of banners.
I know
up there
he's your
in the
best
arena.
friend. You guys are tight.
He's not my best friend, but I do like him. But there's 3 years of banners up there, and they're all his teams.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm just saying it's just a small sample size, but. What he did, you can't argue what he did for the team and the way they played under him. Can't argue that.
There you go. Hal Gill presented by Duncan. Hal will be on the call with Pete. Black Friday special at St. Louis. It is a big one for the Predators, and Money Puck is giving the Predators, as of this morning, a 50% chance of making the playoffs. So even though we're only in November, it's still a big one tonight. Hal, have a great call.
All right, enjoy the game, guys. Cheers.
Yep, very exciting. Hal Gill joining us on the program. And we've got the pregame show coming up, but of course, that means Predators game day is next. Stillman and Company on a Fireball Hot Take Friday. It's 102.5, 106 through the game. Predators Game Day is presented by TJ Anderson Homes of Benchmark Realty. TJAndersonHomes.com. Get your house seen, heard, and sold. Today, the Predators take on the St. Louis Blues. 2 o'clock start right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. The Predators are 8-10-0, good for 16 points. The Blues, 2 spots up in the standings at 10-7-1, good for 21 points. We start with the coach's take. The Predators 3 in a row. Head coach Andrew Burnett on why.
Well, I think we're getting a little bit rewarded for a lot of the things that the work we put in that maybe we came up empty-handed. So I think we kind of stayed pretty stable in our game, and now we're getting a little bit of reward and I think some confidence. We're getting some guys that are scoring some goals, contributing all the different lines, and there's a pretty good feeling right now in the locker room.
Okay, and I got to tell you, this time last week, I was ready to embrace the tank, and since then they've won 3 in a row. I'm not going to try to get too excited about it right now. I think I'm just going to admit it for what it is, which is this has been some entertaining hockey, and they've got a 50% chance, according to Money Puck, of making it to the playoffs this year. That's all I want. All I want is an entertaining March and a playoff series where you've got a team that you know is on the upswing, not stagnant, and that has gotten me excited. And you know I like this new coach, and I think maybe they're starting to get adjusted to him as well. But it's going to be a tough one, a divisional one. They have not played this year. This will be the first matchup between the two teams here on Black Friday for the Predators and the Blues. And Max Hers will have you covered with the pregame show. That is coming up next. Meanwhile, Pete and Hal will have the call at 2 o'clock. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the game. Stillman Co. We'll see you 9:30 on Sunday for the pregame show, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.